Creativity in the Age of COVID with Dr. Judi Blume and Richard Skipper. It's the only program in which therapy and entertainment come together to show everyone not only how to cope in the age of COVID, but how to be creatively productive through it all. And now, Dr. Judi Blume and Richard Skipper.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Creativity in the Age of COVID, Episode 4. I'm your host, Richard Skipper, and I'm very excited about today's show, and I'd like to welcome my co-host, Dr. Judi Blume.
Hi, Richard. How are you today?
I'm doing great, all things considered. I was thinking about this today. Can you believe that today is the 217th day since our theater shut down?
Oh my God. It's frightening to even think about. It really is. Our theaters, our movie theaters. I just read the other day that AMC says it may have to go out of business.
I saw that as well. Absolutely.
It's unbelievable.
Really just to give everyone a little background, if they're joining us for the first time, you are a therapist and I am an entertainer, and we've joined forces, and I approach everything from an entertainer's point of view. And of course, you put that spin on it that puts us all on the right path, God willing. But today's show is called The Show Must Go On. Because even though the theaters have shut down and there are no live concerts for the most part, there are no movie theaters that are open. The wonderful thing is, thanks to social media and the internet, a lot of some of the greatest artists that are out there have taken to this form, and they are putting out incredible work. And I want to ask you, before we bring on our first guest, and we've got some very heavy hitters today, what are you doing right now to keep your sanity in the midst of this crazy world that we find ourselves in?
Reading about the LA Lakers win over Miami. But, even there, rather than just focusing on, the sport and the comeback and the, tribute to Kobe Bryant, which is lovely, a lovely kind of a piece of that. Talking about creativity and looking forward in all forms. For instance, the NBA's approach to how to have a basketball season by keeping everybody in a bubble. That's an incredible approach to being creative when we have to be. I read today about the Jacksonville Jaguars and how they had their mascot who couldn't go visit kids in the hospital, which he would normally do, go get into a fire engine's, lift and go outside the hospital windows, and the kids all got to, see the mascot through the windows. So again, an example of creativity by the fire department, by that NFL team. People working together to come up with solutions, with ways to get us through this. And that's what the essence of creativity is all about.
And today the Tony nominations came out. So even though there's not live theater, it's not fair to all of those artists who put in the hard work and everything. And now they're going to get a chance to compete, although they're not competing on the boards right now. So it's all in the hands of the Tony nominating committee. And that brings us to our first guest, Karen Mason. First of all, I have to begin by saying, and she knows this, that I'm madly in love with her. Her husband, Paul, knows this. Karen is an incredible actress. She's a singer. She actually, if you don't mind my saying this, Karen, actually came to the platform of live stream a little late in the game, comparatively speaking. A lot of people did, start at the very beginning. They jumped right in, but you tested the waters a little bit. You made a few appearances on other people's shows, and then you delved in. Normally, at this time, you would be wrapping up Mason's Making Music, which we do every Thursday normally, but she has decided to take off almost the rest of this month, because a concert that she did in, I think, 2015 at Don't Tell Mama here in New York, where you made your cabaret debut, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, actually, I didn't make my cabaret debut there, but I opened the club.
I was there.
Yeah, 1982.
Woo! I was just going to say a few years ago.
Oh, sorry.
That's kind of right.
I blew your cover.
So, Karen, what has been really wonderful is that you have embraced the art form. You have your show down to a science, and you've got an incredible team behind you, because it does take a village. Can you talk a little bit about your process in terms of how you got started with the live stream concert and how you put this all together each week?
Well, I'm not so sure it took me so long because I had made a choice in that. I think it was because I was numb for a great percentage of that time. And then other people started to activate. Like you said, there were shows that were going on, and I thought, okay, I could get out there and sing a little bit. I just need to keep my voice active and keep my soul a little active. And so I started doing these. I just would do like 2 songs, 3 songs. Now I'm up to 5 and 6. And I mean, it was really a hit or miss situation. I started out with my phone, but then my phone would die in the middle of a song because I didn't have it plugged in correctly. So I've along the way have learned a lot more about technology than I ever thought I needed to know. And it has been thanks to good friends like Matt Berman, who I've known since back in, I think, since '88.
And just for those that don't know Matt, he is a lighting and sound designer. Broadway, cabaret, concerts, you name it, he's done it.
Right. He travels with the best. The best actually hire him. And we've been friends for a long time. '88 was back in the 80s, right? 80s, late 80s. And so he helped me with my little setup. And I mean, mine is really not very professional. It gets the job done. Mm-hmm. And so I do my little shows, and I started doing them for people to make donations to the Actors Fund. Mm-hmm. And then I kind of upped my game a little bit, and because Chris Denny, my music director, and I started doing, I was using basically the tracks from my CDs. I started to up my game a little bit, and Chris and I started to do tracks together, and so I could sing to that on the show. And so I wanted to give him something, and then I added a producer, and she's, taking care of me. And so, yeah, I have my little village that's, and Paul will come in, my husband will come in from the other room and say something, I can't hear you.
About your show, Karen, is that, and we all know, we all do prefer the live experience, but for you are live at that moment. And if something goes wrong, if something goes awry, the light isn't there, or the sound is off, or you're getting 50,000 echoes coming back, you deal with it.
Yeah, you deal with it. Listen, this is what we've all learned with, 150 years of live performing, is that you just deal with it. It's part of the package, and how you deal with it without making it throw you. The first night I did my little show, all of a sudden Paul comes in from the bathroom and I hear whoosh. So, what can you do?
I was watching that show, but the whoosh that you described, nobody else heard because your sound was off.
Well, there you go. So see, at least now I have sound on, which helps. But I'm really enjoying it. I did take October off because I was just feeling like I was starting to feel like every week I would panic to, what am I going to sing? What am I going to say? I had nothing new to offer. And so I wanted to take a little time off just to refresh, just to, get back to being with my husband all the time, maybe taking the car and going somewhere, you know, just changing my environment. And then also really starting to work on new things that are going to be good for my soul and good for my performing, as opposed to just rehashing all the things that I have the tracks of. So I'm looking forward to, and it'll be after the election. So hopefully I'll be in great spirits.
Exactly. And, Karen,
do you have any questions before we bring on our next guest?
Yeah, Karen, facing those fears, what you're talking about, is really important. And understanding that we all go through that. We all feel like we've been saying the same thing over and over again because we've been locked down in this crazy situation around the same people all the time. So everybody's feeling that. And I think that if you can come from that, spirit of truly, we're all in this. We're all feeling these feelings. We're all feeling like, oh, I've said it before. I've sung it before. That's okay. For that one person who's hearing it new for the first time, it's still meaningful to them.
Yeah. And you do have to hold on to that. I mean, you really have to hold on to that. It will be new for someone.
That's right.
And it will touch them, somebody new. It's just, sometimes you just have to go, okay, I need to back away for just a second. And refresh my soul.
Exactly.
Now, you do that every week. Dr. Judi Blume and I do this every other week, but it seems like we do it every week because before you know it, it seems like it was yesterday that we just finished the last one and we're getting ready to the next one. And we were talking the other night and I said, is there anyone that you would like me to reach out to? And she said, well, I just saw Sharon McNight and I love Sharon McNight. You can get her. And I reached out to Sharon and here she is.
Yay, Sharon.
Now turn your mic on. You're muted. Okay. Sharon, you're muted. There you go.
There we go. I have a minor in radio and television broadcasting, and I can't even figure out. I didn't have my glasses on. That's it. I can't see that shit now anymore.
So Sharon,
I know you're out there.
I want to ask you, how are you dealing with all of this in the midst of this crazy world we're in?
Well, it started out that I would, instead of, everybody was singing songs in the beginning, and I went, jeez, anybody could sing a song for Christ's sake. So I started telling dirty jokes. And I would tell a dirty joke every day. And I had somebody living with me at the time who was 26 years old who knows the internet and all the little buttons to push and all that kind of crap. And so he videoed them for me. And so we would put out a new joke every day. And it got to be where everybody was, what's your next joke going to be? Oh, boy. I was bringing out jokes that I told in 8th grade, man. But they were still working. They were still working.
Just 10 years ago.
And so we did that for a while. And then he moved back to Croatia. Damn it. And I lost my engineer. And then I started, teaching a comedy class. It was going to be 6 weeks of comedy, but people can't be funny for 6 weeks. It's just not possible. Everybody wants to cabaret, sing serious songs and slash their wrists. It's just the way it goes because comedy is hard. Dying is easy, and so we did 2 classes with Singnasium, and then we tried a 3rd one, but there weren't enough registrants to hold the class. So, it's tough because, like I say, everybody wants to sing a ballad and nobody wants to be funny because it's hard. You know that, Richard.
Do you feel an extra obligation in the midst of everything that's going on to be funny?
Yes, fortunately I do. It's a huge responsibility. And that's why I started telling those jokes because there was nobody being funny. Everybody was being serious. Don't cry out loud. Just keep it inside. Try not to hide your feelings. So I'm funny. That's what I do for a living. It's hard. I do it all the time now. Just try to keep people's spirits up. And then by keeping their spirits up, I'm trying to lift mine a little bit too, because it's hard out there. You know how depressed, the most depressed people I've ever met in my life were comedians, quite frankly.
That's true. That's true. Well, I will say, whether you want to use the word stalking or following, I've been doing that with you for most of your career.
Thank you.
And I have had the good fortune of being on the same stage with you, being in the audience many times to see you perform.
And Carol Chiani.
That's true. That's another lifetime ago. But you also, you give always, and Karen, you do too, you give 150,000% to your audience, because for you, it's all about the audience. And has doing this really impacted you on any level, doing it virtually as opposed to being in front of an audience?
I still give it out. You know, it's just, that's just the rule.
Mm-hmm.
When I started taking flute and piano and dance lessons, it was always, you give it all. That's it, you know, or don't show up, you know.
That's right.
It's just
and you're doing a real service. And Sharon, I'm going to ask you to tilt your camera down a little bit so you can get a little bit
camera down a little bit. Okay.
So we can see it. There you go.
Oh, I know. You want to see my tits, Judi. Don't kid yourself on that. No, my Hawaiian shirt. This is Hawaiian.
I like the
Hawaiian dances that I did when I was a dancer, as a matter of fact.
Uh-huh.
Now, when I started out at Don't Tell Mama, I had the good fortune, there were two lighting designers there, Bobby Nealon and Shawn Moninger.
Yep.
And Shawn Moninger not only is one of the best, like Carol Channing is in my past, lighting design is in his past, one of the best lighting designers that's out there. He is also a very funny man. He's a great comedian. But he's now also a reverend. And one of the reasons that I wanted to ask him to do the show, in addition to the fact that I love him, is the fact that he does these virtual services from Unity in Connecticut. And they've become almost daily now, haven't they, Shawn?
They were daily.
Mm-hmm.
And now I've gotten busier and they're not so daily anymore. And it's like, do I have as much to say as I did the first few months of all this going on? And yeah, it's funny. I do a virtual service as opposed to virtually doing a service.
Mm-hmm.
And it's wonderful. I mean, we had been on Facebook Live for about a year before this happened. And then in March, I wanted to stay live and in person with the people, and you came with such heart and said, "Beg, Shawn, please don't do this. Don't let people come into your church. This is a terrible thing going on." You called David and said, "Stop him from having a service."
That I did.
And I said, "Mind your own business."
Yes.
And a week later, we closed.
Mm-hmm.
Within 1 week, everything changed. You know, you pray, you listen. And we closed it. We just started doing Facebook Live. And I'll tell you, we have hundreds of views now as opposed to 30 to 60 in person. And so I can't complain. We'll stay on Facebook forever. We do our board meetings now on what do you call it? The Zoom. Zoom is my friend. I just love the Zoom. Some people, it wears on them, and I thrive. I did a whole convention last week on Zoom. And so I have no complaints about any of that. And yes, it is bizarre, my path.
Mm-hmm.
That 21 years at Mama's.
Well,
can I add something to this? This
by all means.
Shawn is the only man that I know that could make me get up at 7 o'clock in the morning to sing the blues at 8 o'clock in the morning to be broadcast over his church channel. 8 o'clock in the morning singing "Guilty" by Randy Newman. I know.
In Norwalk, Connecticut, no less.
In Connecticut.
That was a broadcast. That was live and in person.
Oh, live.
No
offense to Jesus.
Yeah, when Sharon sang that song, if you don't know her song "Guilty," you must hear it. Go get the album now. But as she was walking off and I hugged her, she went, "It's very early in the morning."
And you have followed all the guidelines, and you've done what you've had to do based on the mandates that have been put forward in Connecticut.
Absolutely.
And it hasn't affected the quality of work that you're putting out there, one iota.
Well, I appreciate that. I had to learn how you speak to a camera as opposed to empty chairs.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the first few weeks we still had the stage set up, or the pulpit set up like there was an audience there, and I'm looking around and there's nobody there, and so the camera people and then somebody said, "Shawn, clear away all that stuff." So, and I kept Kenneth, I wouldn't let him come up for the first 10 weeks from New York. I said, no, you stay home. We'll pay you, but you stay home. And David Friedman played every week, and Christina Connor sang every week. And David Friedman, two David Friedman songs, and they did it for free as a gift to the church, so Kenneth could keep getting paid. Our staff got paid, and then when Kenneth came back, we set up 2 sets. It became a TV studio. There's the piano set.
Mm-hmm.
Where Kenneth is surrounded by a couple of little things. And then there's my set for when I speak over on the other side of the stage, surrounded right now by a bunch of sunflowers. And so I try to make it as not distracting.
Now, if you've got these 2 sets, is there a specific platform that you're using to get that out to everyone, or how are you doing that?
Well, I have Steve Bustamonte's on the camera. And so he puts the camera over here when we're stage left by the piano, and he moves it usually center stage when I walk over there.
So it's all done with one camera.
Yeah, well, Steve is actually using 2 cameras now, and he's got a mixing board there. You can push a button to have it fade. Steve Bustamonte is wonderful. Those of you who've hired him in New York Cabaret to take your shows, he's wonderful. He's got a great attitude, and he experiments. We would never have our YouTube channel or any of that without Steve. He just volunteered to do it all years ago, and he created a business for himself.
Shawn, I'm really curious about your journey to decide to become a reverend, and what specifically you find yourself preaching about.
Well, let's say, as I said, after 21 years of doing lights at Don't Tell Mama, ministry was the only thing left for me to do. I'm a unity minister, so it's New Thought.
Right.
And when I started years ago, I was invited to Eric Butterworth's at Avery Fisher Hall in Lincoln Center. And I walked in, and a man named Stephen LeHue was screaming out, "On a clear day, you could see forever." And I thought, oh, show tunes, I could go here. And then the minister that day was very funny, and I had never laughed in church before. And so I went back a few times and then stopped. And then several months later, I woke up and said, you need something today, unity. And I went, and it was wonderful. And the minister there that day talked about Leviticus and all those abominations to God and man. And I found out that day for sure I wasn't one of them. I thought I discovered is in whatever you want to call it. If you want to call it God, if you want to call it spirit, you want to call it life or light, it doesn't matter. It's just, what do you believe that there's some invisible presence that's on your side? And I knew in that I was good, even if I was poorly behaved. And I was, and even if I didn't feel good. So it had nothing to do with that. It had to do with my exact nature. And I thought, well, I guess, as I say, isn't it hard to realize the people you don't like have friends too? And so we're all good in whatever that presence is. And I wanted to pass along that message, and I wanted to do it and be as funny as I could, because my mentors were Edwin Gaines out of Alabama and stuff, hysterical. My mentors were funny, plus I lit all these cabaret people for years. So I was in the booth studying timing and, and how to make a point, to the point where a few years ago I did my own cabaret show after 100 years of wanting to and being afraid to do it. I said, I'm going to do it. And so I called the show Because I Can. And I ran for 10 months in New York. I sold out most of the time. I won a couple of awards, and I sang. I sang in it. How ridiculous that Shawn would get up and sing. Sang 2 David Friedman songs. Why? Because he was willing to play for free. And I learned them. As I say, for me, he's free. For the rest of you, he's very expensive. And so I proved what I preach, which is, you can do anything you want if you're willing to.
It's free, but if we put out, will it be free?
Well, no.
On that note,
not for the lady folk.
I'm going to go to the other end of the spectrum. I mean, as early as Sharon gets up, our next guest has stayed up very late tonight. Harold Sanditen is actually streaming live from London right now. And it's what time there now, Harold?
At 22 o'clock.
11:25.
Wow. Well, Harold, you also, I mean, you are originally from the United States. You moved to London. You have made a name for yourself there with the work that you've been doing, but you also have this open mic show. I know that Sharon has been on the show. I think, Karen, you've been on the show as well. Maybe Dr. Bloom and I are the only two who haven't.
I haven't.
Do a trio and come back. But what I love about the show is that you bring all these great artists from all over the world, essentially, onto the show. They come on, and a lot of them do pre-record their songs, but there's also the live element in which you sit down and talk to them about what's going on. Had you been doing this kind of a show prior to the pandemic, or did the pandemic cause you to go in another direction?
Well, once we couldn't do the open mic live.
And if you can speak closer to the mic, because there's a little, we're losing. Okay.
Once we couldn't do the open mic live, I didn't have a choice but to do it virtually or not do it. And we were getting ready to celebrate our 7th birthday, and I didn't want to miss the party. And I had never heard of Zoom like any of us back in March. I didn't know what it was. But once I figured it out, I thought, well, let's give it a try. But of course, everything that we do technologically for all of us in this business is a learning curve. And you're shooting from the hip constantly. And so every time I did the show, it was a new learning. You learn something else you can't do. It's always what you can't do. It's never what you can do. It's all the things that cause a problem, all the things that make the show drag. So anyway, I did not have a vision of going out to do a virtual variety show, but somehow I ended up doing it. And to me, there are certain silver linings in the pandemic, and one is that we can all be here together now and be in all these cities across the world. And as soon as that became, it didn't take more than 5 seconds, but once I saw that, I thought this is an opportunity to build the open mic into a global platform as opposed to just a London-based show where people who are in London at that moment can participate, but nobody else can.
Mm-hmm.
And, there were people like, well, my mentors, Karen and Sharon, both of them were teachers of mine when I started studying cabaret. And so I just pulled out the address book and started contacting people that I liked and respected and knew, had a relationship with, so that it was easier to get to them as opposed to trying to break a barrier with someone you've never met before.
Mm-hmm.
And so it just bloomed. And, I'm delighted with it. Like Karen, I had to take a break. When it came to August, I had been doing it for months on end, and the live shows are a piece of cake.
How often do you do the shows, Harold? Excuse me for interrupting. How often were they shows? Were you doing them?
Once a month live, but they're every 2 weeks now virtually. I can't get as many people on virtually because I chat with people, and I want to make sure that that's a big part of the show.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is important to hear people's stories where they are, as opposed to just hearing them sing. And the problem is live, you've got 30 people in the room, all of whom want to get on the stage and sing. And something has to give. And usually it's the chat between me and the patrons that gives, because I'd rather give the people who come to sing a chance to sing, because that's why they're there.
Mm-hmm.
So all of it is a bit of a trade-off. But I'm delighted with how it has sort of snowballed and become something much bigger than I expected. And I know that once we go back to having live open mics, I will continue to do the virtual open mic, because for a long time there will be people who are shielding. There are people who can't or don't want to go, don't feel comfortable to go out yet. And why not give them an opportunity? And there are plenty of performers who will have no place for their voice to be heard.
Mm-hmm.
And so, for me, it's like constantly trying to figure out how I service the people who helped me build the open mic to be the success that it is giving them the chance to come back, let's say 2 or 3 times in a season, while still bringing on people who are well known around the world, like Sharon and Karen and, you know, other people that I've asked to be on. Trying to balance that is difficult, and then trying to balance the male-female ratio. There are so many more women who are game to do this.
Mm-hmm.
I tell you, it is really, it's an eye-opener as you go through it. You ask them, they sort of feign some sort of interest, and you think that they're going to do it, and then you can never get a response. You know, it's just, the door is closed. And it's really interesting that. I mean, there must be plenty of men who are desperate to get on the stage, but I don't seem to be able to find all of them.
Now, do you have only singers on the show, or do you do comedians as well?
Just live music. And all the performances are by video.
Mm-hmm.
And what's really been interesting to see in the evolution of the show is how early on, none of us knew this whole thing. So we were doing videos where somebody was playing piano in one place and bass in another place and drums in another place and the singer, and you patched 4 pieces together, you know? And I did like 3 of those. And I thought, okay, been there, done that. This is like the most boring thing I've ever done. I can't stand singing into the... And once I discovered the joys of green screen, oh my God, that has been like the... I adore it, and I have the best video editor on earth who puts these videos together. I stand in front of the green screen and film on my own, hoping that what I'm doing will be okay.
And
I have no idea because I give it to somebody else, and they put it together. But I've also been able to take all my last 2 CDs were live recordings, so I don't have backing tracks from them. You can't remove the vocals very easily from a live recording. So I've been lip syncing to my music because it's the only way that I couldn't get the track again, and I wouldn't know how to do that. So I have to find ways to keep it interesting, because if I just keep turning it out like it started, it gets boring really fast. And you burn out really fast. And once something energizes me, then I get the energy to keep going. It's hard work doing a virtual show every week. It really is. You have to get the people, you have to organize everything, you have to get all the videos in, you have to get them in order. And when you do a live show, you show up, people decide they want to sing, you have a list of names, you curate the song as the show as the evening goes on, and you host it, and it's over, and it's done, and it just happens live.
Well, I know how difficult it is putting together just a one-on-one show and making sure that all the elements are there. And then you find out that the person that you're doing this with doesn't have the right equipment, or their microphone doesn't work, or their camera doesn't work, or all of these things. And it's a stressful proposition every week.
It's very stressful, all this technology that we have to deal with, because like Karen was saying, you just do what has to be done, but it doesn't make it less stressful. If something happens live in your ear with people watching, you can't just take the time out to say, okay, hold on a second, let me see.
Right.
Let's see, what do I do here? You have to keep the momentum going. You have to keep it moving.
Yeah, but aren't people fairly forgiving in the beginning? They were fairly forgiving of you if you made a fuck up,
Yes, they were, but I'm not the kind of person that wants that to keep happening.
Who are you talking to? A journalist? You know what I mean?
There's plenty of fuck-ups. My biggest problem is getting the streams to work to both YouTube and Facebook. I don't know what my problem is. I'm not a technophobe, but for whatever reason, every time I go to press the custom streaming button on Zoom, something goes wrong.
Then don't touch the button.
we'll talk, Harold. I can help you with that issue. So that's great. Karen will tell you I helped her. I can help you.
Yeah.
Harold, it's that old saying, it only hurts when I do this. The doctor.
Dr. Bloom, do you have any comments?
I have embraced the virtual world. I was surprised that I would. I'm very extroverted, but I'm finding myself to be a bit of a hermit,
You're over 30 now.
I'm okay in this little space that I've got here, my tiny little space where I create stuff, Anyway.
Adapting to this virtual world is, I think the common thread here. That's what we're all trying to figure out, struggling with. I know, I do therapy with people, right? I do hypnotherapy sometimes with people. I had, ambulances going by in the distance yesterday to the therapy session. So I just said, and the siren is even more relaxing.
I have a question I want to pose to all of you, and I'll start with you, Karen. What is the biggest learning curve that you've had to deal with to get to the art that you're creating now? And what was the easiest thing for you to embrace?
Probably the hardest thing was the technology, how to get the music through this so that I can sing with it and it all kind of goes to, and keep my microphone on, which is what you showed me how to do. And, and also the lights, and it's definitely the technology. I'm a singer. I usually stand there and there's a tech director and a sound person, and I have my director and I have my music director. And now it's, me and my computer, and I get to sing to a hole in my computer. And that is very strange, I've gotten better at it, but talking to a hole in your computer is just so bizarre.
Well, John, I want to say to you that if anyone didn't appreciate you years ago, they certainly do now. And what about you, Sharon? What has been the most difficult learning curve for you during this time?
Well, like I say, I had a minor in radio and television production. And so I kept that up, and I have a very high mechanical skill, as Shawn will probably attest to you. And I used to do my own lights all the time and my own sound because I was going to be a lighting designer. What happened, Sharon? And so just lately, because I'm getting old and I'm getting ornery and I'm getting tired of amateurs and I'm getting tired of mediocre shit coming down the pike, I'm starting to turn off, and I don't want to do it anymore. I don't want to learn anything. I don't use my cell phone I don't do that texting thing. Don't want to do it. It's destroyed people's lives. They have no personality. They're doing it when they're driving. They're putting my life in danger with this little thumb bullshit. I don't do that. I will never do that ever, ever, ever. So I'm kind of the Grinch in the back going, I'm not going forward. I'm not dragging this shit with me into the 21st century. Not happening. If you want to talk to me, you call me on the fucking phone. That's just the way the rules are. Let's talk. People don't talk to me. All they do is text. Really, it's true, isn't it?
It's true.
Yeah, true.
It's true.
And that's what makes people funny. Is the truth will set you free. So I don't like this stuff. The reason that I did the jokes, we did like 45 different jokes, is because I had a kid who was under 30 who would just sit there, and we turned on the lights. We turned the lights around in my living room and shined them up. Just light frickin' bulbs on me. And we did it in front of this huge picture that I have, and we broadcast that, and it worked like this. I mean, so. Now,
Sharon, I'm not a therapist, but I've been wanting to ask you this for years. Why do you hold back so much?
It's in my colon. It's my colon. If you don't fart, you have problems.
I love you, Sharon. I love you so much.
Your head goes up.
And, Sharon, we're having an epidemic of depression right now. We really are. I mean, statistically, depression is way, way, way up.
You're
So
telling
what you're doing is such a service.
I will.
You know, I hope you look at it that way. That we need to laugh, and
Yeah,
that's one of the best antidotes to depression.
Mhm.
So you know, comedians are really important right now for us.
And that breathing, that's important too.
Breathing too.
Good breathing.
We all need to take a collective breath.
Yes,
Every morning, we need to get up and take a collective breath together. And what about you, Shawn? I mean, what has been the most difficult learning curve for you in the midst of this new virtual world that we live in?
Well, I'll tell you, getting over my self-consciousness. You know, to look into the camera, and because it's really grating when you hear somebody new say, "Oh, this is so uncomfortable. I don't know if anybody can hear me. Oh, am I on? I just assumed I was on, and let's talk." And I just had to not worry about response.
Mm-hmm.
I was so used to all I've ever done. Everything I've done is live. I don't have a lot of television background, but I just do your job. And no, it's not like somebody was paying me to do that. The daily thing. It's my purpose. Let me spread a message that is fun, insightful, and offers an opportunity to think beyond their anger, to think beyond their politics, to know there's something bigger than what our little minds are imagining right now. Because we put ourselves down into a box of hate. I know people who go to sleep at night listening to the news. And one friend of mine had cancer, and I said, turn that off, please.
Yeah.
You're not going to get healthy. Unity, we promote health and prosperity and well-being and self-love and self-respect and dignity, and so it's not about worship. It's not about religion. It's really not. It's about that your thought is your cause of your life, and what do you want your life to look like? And if you don't know what you're thinking, look at your life, and it'll tell you exactly what you've been thinking. If you don't like that, change your thought. That's all. There's no cause for guilt. There's just, okay, and that's what my teachers taught me. So I thought, what the heck? Let me pass along the good news, as it were. Yeah. So the difference between self-consciousness and God consciousness. Yes, Judi, you want to?
I teach my patients the 10 rules of twisted thinking, right? So that they can see just how their thoughts really are controlling how they feel, and understand how we commonly twist things up in our heads, you know, by catastrophizing things, by seeing things in very black and white terms, by, you know, shooting on ourselves. I tell everybody, stop shooting on yourself.
Exactly.
So you know, all these different ways that we, you know, discounting the positive things, you know, all these different ways that people twist up stuff in their heads, and that it is so important in influencing how we look at the world and our part in it, and then how we feel about that part in it. So it's very much in line, Shawn, with what you're talking about.
Well, I always used to love what my grandmother used to say. She always used to say, what people think of you is none of your business. You know?
Well, it absolutely isn't, but that won't stop me from trying. Listen, Sharon, you talk about your text. I want you to know the good news I've gotten while we've been on here. One text said, Shawn, we promise you'll lose over 80 pounds in less than 4 weeks. And the next one said, we promise you'll lose over 90 pounds in less than 5 weeks.
Wow.
I don't know these people. How do they know I need to?
They're watching us now. Thank you. And what about you, Harold? I mean, you are working so hard on creating. Your shows run about how long in length each show?
About 90 minutes.
I'm sorry?
About 90 minutes.
Okay. And so I guess it's putting the order of the artist, and do you do a theme certain times, or you just know what they're going to do and then you put it together? What's your process of putting your show together?
No sad ballad rule. It's not going to happen. And somebody submitted the darkest, saddest ballad for the last open mic. It was filmed in a black room with just the light on his face, and it was dire. And it was 5 minutes, and I have a 3.5 minute maximum length. So it's the first time I told someone that they could do the song, because I know that online people will tune out very quickly. If you're live and somebody doesn't like your one song, they're going to stay for the next one. But if you're in a variety 5 minutes of blackness comes on, you're going to lose your audience. They're just going to go. And so, I recognize that. But I think the biggest obstacle for me is the technology. Like, I knew that live performances on Zoom was a touch and go thing. So I decided that the only way to go was by video. But I haven't tested enough of the other platforms to know what's the best. I just did my own thing. So now I'm getting ready to do a live performance on Zoom, which I've never done. I've only done one.
Wow.
All of a sudden I have to figure out how that works. Like, how does my microphone work? Where do I play the music from? Do I play it ambiently in the room, or do I play it through the computer into Zoom? I don't know, because I've never done it before. But, I've developed a system which works for my show, and because people are willing to make videos and they get increasingly more creative, it's really nice to see the very simple, beautiful songs that are just sung beautifully, and people who go with production values that rival Hollywood. You have this whole mix of stuff, and that really makes the evening interesting. It's a real varied evening. There are people who just want to sing a song to the dot.
Well,
like Sharon and me who like do what?
Yeah. I like those dots to have legs and arms.
Yeah.
Don't you?
And a smile.
And a smile.
All of us, I mean, including Dr. Bloom and Shawn with prepping for a sermon, we just don't flip on a light and a microphone and expect that it's going to happen. And I think that that's one of the biggest fallacies out there for a lot of people, because as Sharon said earlier, there's a lot of garbage out there. And it's out there because, not necessarily because the people that are putting it out there are untalented, it's because the prep has not gone into it. And I think that that's one of the biggest things. Shawn, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry to interrupt you. A lot of it, there's not a lot of prep, but there's a desperate need for attention. A desperate need. And a lot of people just don't have a point of view. And so they just want to get on and blah, 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 with no agenda, or with a poor agenda, with somebody else's agenda. A lot of people will get up and spout their mother's agenda, their father's agenda, Sharon McNight's agenda. They will get up out there. Oh, I saw Karen Mason do her act. Now I'm going to go do Karen Mason's act. And they think that's easy. The pioneer of the Unity movement, she healed herself of tuberculosis. She was given 3 months to live. Myrtle Fillmore, and this is 1886, and she found a way to pray through affirmation, and she healed. It took 2 years, but she healed, and she lived another 45 years.
Wow.
I have heard people say, Myrtle Fillmore, you can read her story. You can go to Google and find it. But I've heard people say who have been diagnosed with certain ailments, I'm just going to myrtle it. These are usually people without insurance that say this. But I say, really? You're going to myrtle? Do you know what a commitment it is to myrtle it? Are you going to sit every day and meditate and pray and affirm, and even when it looks the darkest, say, okay, what do I have to think here? And it's a huge commitment to have a healing. An intentional healing.
I want you to repeat that, because that's going to be my new mantra. It takes a huge commitment for a healing.
Yeah.
That's great. I love that.
It takes a huge commitment to be good in whatever you do.
Yes.
And you can't just think you know it. You might have to learn from somebody else. They teach you how not to, pick your nose when you're singing. And I mean, don't do that. Don't do that. It's not, there's so many. The problem is when Karen and I started out in 1825.
We look very good, by the way, for 18.
There's a video on YouTube of that.
Started out. Listen, there was Nancy Lamont and Karen and I and a bunch of other women that really were focused, and we had somebody who focused with us, Irv Rabel, bless his heart, rest his soul, and who got behind us, and recognized that we had something there that wasn't like all the other people that came in to sing with 2 beers under their belts. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so the discipline that we learned then carried on. And obviously everybody looked and went, oh, golly, she's successful. She's in a Broadway show. I could sing songs. I have 12 songs. I know 12 songs. Just got off the bus and I'll sing my 12 songs and I'll make $1 billion and get a Tony and everything will be great. Well, they didn't put the work in. They didn't go to drama school. They didn't get their master's degree. They didn't perform in every, Lions Club, Eagles,
Right.
when they were in 4th and 5th and 6th grade. I mean, they didn't take piano lessons. They just thought, oh, this is a piece of cake. I can do this. And they got off the bus and bing, all of a sudden we were glutted with all these excuse my French, doctor, I don't know you that well, but you know me now. Meaty fucking ochre people. Meaty fucking ochre. You know?
I ate that last night.
All of a sudden, not only did we have an epidemic that was killing our audience, but also the mediocrity was taking us down the slide.
Mm-hmm.
And we got stuck. And some of us that had been around since, dirt was invented, were getting screwed because nobody wanted to go, oh, she's in cabaret? Oh, and my friend did that. I saw her show. Ooh, boy,
Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, you got to have some standards here, folks.
Mm-hmm.
And now that they don't review you anymore in the newspapers, what are you going to do?
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to get,
Well, here we are. I mean, here we are putting it out there. And it's the same thing as it was when you and Karen, and it wasn't that long ago because I was there too. And I refuse to say it was that long ago. But, you paid your dues. You come to New York, you audition and audition and audition in hopes of getting an equity card. And then you get your equity card and you have the equity card, but you can't get any work because the only people that are hiring are non-equity people. And it's like this vicious cycle that we're all in, but the bottom line for each of us, and I think that that's the important thing right now with all of us, is that we are all, not only us, but everyone who's watching and beyond, we're all trying to find our niche on this planet.
Yes.
That's the bottom line. And, some are, have the training that we all have here. Some don't. And as I said before, they think they can flip a switch on and, it's all going to magically be there. My first few podcasts, I did an incredible interview, if I do say so myself. And then when I went to save it, I realized that nothing had been saved.
oh,
And that was when I first started doing this. And, so those issues are there. And Dr. Bloom, that stress just shoots right through you, adrenaline, but in the opposite direction.
On more than one Sunday, our Facebook has gone down just before we did the love offering. And that's our income.
timing. That's the most important thing in show business, timing.
Yeah, you're not kidding. Something we're getting creative with in Unity of New York, because I serve as a minister there as well. Not the minister, but a minister.
Mm-hmm.
I speak once a month and I mentor people there. But we're starting to use video. They have a more sophisticated system of something called Be Live, where I'll do the Sunday talk from Connecticut in New York this week. But like Karen was our soloist a couple of weeks ago because she pre-recorded a couple of songs. Actually, she re-recorded a couple of songs.
Pre-re.
She had done them, and then I said, "Could you do them differently?"
Shawn didn't like my sweater.
Well, she did. She prepared. She recorded "Hey There, Good Times," and it didn't seem like she's very happy about it.
Look what he's wearing. Look what he's wearing.
I know, but he put me in a sequin sweater, and I was much happier.
He did not.
I do want to say, folks, we believe it or not, we are almost at the very end of our show. Not to go too far over. I want to thank you all for being here. I love each and every one of you, and I do appreciate the art. And I use that word very special with each of you, that I appreciate the art that you put out. I want to thank everyone for being here. We're going to take the next Thursday off that we would normally be here. And then we will be back on November 5th. Hopefully, with blue skies.
Yes, hopefully.
And we're all hoping for blue skies. Hopefully. I want to thank everyone for tuning in today. If you enjoyed the show, and I hope you did, please go to my website, richardskipper.com, sign the guest book with your thoughts about the show. I end every show by telling everyone to go out and do something nice for somebody else without expecting anything in return. Karen, Sharon, Shawn, Harold, and Dr. Bloom, if you have anything to promote, feel free to post it on my timeline, because I'm all about sharing and getting it out there and letting as many people know about it as possible. Don't ever hesitate. That forum is always welcome to all of you. So you don't even have to ask, just put it out there. And before we end the show, I want to start with you, Karen. We're going to go around, and Dr. Bloom, I'm going to give you the final word. Any message that you want to put out to everyone who's watching, either a message of hope or where you are. You could share anything that you want. This is your moment to get your message out. And at what time tonight, Karen, will you be streaming?
Oh, it's 8:00 tonight. And then on Saturday at 2 and Sunday at 3, doing the Don't Tell Mama show. Mason at Mama's. That's right. Harold paid his money.
Great. Great. So, Karen, I'm going to start with you, and we'll, anything that you want to say to everyone who's watching today.
Well, to piggyback on what you said, Richard, I think it's really important that during this most stressful of times that we all try to be as kind to each other and to ourselves. And don't be afraid to ask friends for help. But I think the greatest kindness is to try to be kind to each other. We can get through this. We will get through it. But how we get through it is, I think, still undecided. And I would prefer that we get through with kindness.
Now, before I go to Sharon, one thing that we all forget, though, in the midst of all this, is to be kind to ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's the empathy that we need to have for ourselves. Sharon?
Well, now that we had the Miss Purity up there, it's now.
I am Miss Purity.
I know you are. I've known you for 42 years, for Christ's sake. 42 years. No, only 40. Only 40.
Okay.
Well, let me just tell you, here I am in LA. I don't know. I'm in Hollywood. I don't like to say LA because it's Hollywood. I live in Hollywood. And there's a shortage in Hollywood, and it's of quarters. So I just want to warn you, if you're living in Hollywood and you don't have a washing machine that works without quarters, start saving now, baby, because things are getting dirty out here fast with all this winds coming in and all the dust and stuff. And remember, drink your water. Your water. I mean, I am practical. I'm just
You are practical.
That's it. My God. You people do your tears stuff. And us, we get drunk over in the corner and laugh ourselves silly. That's all I have to say. So there.
Love you. Shawn?
Well, wow. I didn't know we were going to do this. And I thought, what I have that's pithy? Because now I've got a bumper sticker here that says Jesus would slap the shit out of you, but I don't think that's the message we want to so I thought, how about I wanted to hang in my sanctuary, which says your joy is chasing you down the street. Let it catch you.
Oh, I love that.
Great. I like that. Harold? And thanks for staying up, by the way.
I need to ask people to find a way to get away from the noise. That's what drives me crazy right now, is the idea that I need to be informed, but the more informed I am, the more noise I have to listen to, the more I have to process, and the more depressed I am. So very recently, after I cast my vote, I decided that basically I was done listening anymore. And I feel so much better being informed. And I mean, that's a horrible thing to say, but in addition to the pandemic, everything that's going on politically in the world, it's not just in America, it's horrible here.
Mm-hmm.
The people in the arts here are being told their jobs are not viable anymore, that they need to retrain and reboot. Ooh. And so this is a government ad went out with a picture of a ballerina saying that she needs to find a new career and she needs to retrain and reboot. And it's just absolutely disgusting what we have to watch and process and figure it out. So find some place where you can get peace of mind and get away from the noise. I don't know. I don't have a piece of advice as to what that is. To find your sweet spot and go there, because this is just way too much.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Bloom. And thank you again, Dr. Bloom.
Absolutely.
Thank you all.
The theme of today's show was the show must go on. And I think that that's true for all of us. We need to find a way for ourselves to go on, for ourselves to do what we need to do to get through these very trying times and find those inner resources that we do have and not be afraid to make those mistakes, face those challenges. They're going to be there, but we can do it. We can make it happen and do it with love, do it with kindness, do it with creativity. And if you need help, get some help to get there.
Thank you. Goodbye, everybody. I'll see
Thank
you.
you all.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Stay out of trouble. Okay. See you later. Bye.